Hello and welcome, everyone. Today is a very special day. For the first time, we're looking at the city in a full scale. We can start imagining, we can start dreaming, we can start working with it. And for that, all our gratitude to Anupama Kundoo, who has worked on this. Now, Anupama, we are a little familiar with her because she has been Anu, who was here before, as a fresh young architect who was arriving in Auroville. She worked with Roger Anger, our chief architect, for several years before moving out, and has had a wide range of experience across the world, and has won several accolades for her own work. Amongst them, she has exhibited twice at the Venice Biennale, where the New York Times actually said her work was a gem among the rubble. I thought that was quite something. And then she has also exhibited a much larger full-scale model of the line of Goodwill and details of Auroville as an urban planned city at the Louisiana Museum in Denmark. And last year, she won actually two very major awards, international awards in architecture, for architecture. One which is given by the International Union of Architects, and which puts her on par with Calatrava and others. And then Norman Foster, Calatrava. And then she was given the other one, that is the Auguste Perret Prize. And then she was given the RIBA, the RIBA Charles Jenks Award, again for her contribution internationally to the practice and theory of architecture. The previous one much more for her work with sustainable energy, sustainable architecture and development. It's a long list. Wherever she goes, she comes with a long list. And I think RIBA was won previously by people like Charles Correa, Zaha Hadid, and so on. So we are in good company with her. So I'll turn it over to Anu today to say why and what have brought her to this exhibition. And then I'll pass her on to Arun and Lakshay to carry on this conversation. Thank you.
I'm presenting here today, not alone. You know, it's true that Anu gave the introduction about me, but none of this work is possible with everybody's input. So I think about half the people who are here have contributed to this exhibition. And a lot of people from the very early days, like I see my first friend here, Raman, there. We have all worked together in this very space. We used to work here, was our architecture office. And Roger used to be very much here. And the same Matri Mandir model used to be built here and all of that. So my being here, to answer Anu in brief, why I'm here is I think it's the first time we have the opportunity to show in Auroville what we have been doing, because somehow we had a climate that if you worked for that kind of visionary city, I mean, if you worked with Roger, it was not something it was not naturally integrated, actually. For some reason, whatever we are going through right now, some of us who worked on the city were actually not somehow integrated. And just like our normal budgets would not include planning was not prioritized. I came into an Auroville where you almost had to work undercover. You know, I'm going to speak without barriers, if that's okay, you know. Because I think because Arun is here, and he has been many young people asking me a lot of questions. And I said, you know, it's the first time I've been invited to say whatever I have to say. And I'm planning to just not be filtered. I think we have, those of us who worked for the city, we have paid a very big price to do that in Auroville, but today we are ready to pay double. That's what I would say. Because we are here for that. And a lot of us, like Guna, a lot of us who have contributed to different things are doing other things today because we didn't find a way to fuel through Auroville, through our funding, through our inside. We haven't managed to we somewhere, I feel, we lost track of the reason to come to Auroville to build the city. So some people, as time went on, and it was not in the first years when it was losing momentum, maybe we got lost a bit the track into our day-to-day affairs. Roger, I will end with that so that the questions can start, but Roger used to often remind us, even though we used to do planning work, he used to all the time remind us of the purpose of everything. So some of us who worked very close to him, we never forget the purpose of everything. And the purpose of being here is to, even if we did not have any obstacles, the city that we want to create, which the mother gave him the brief for, is a very difficult challenge. Even if we did not have obstacles, because then we will have our inner resistances, our lack of knowledge and all of that. So we have to get very fast to a place of no resistance, so then even then it will be challenging. But the purpose, the governance, everything was to build the city, not to keep up day-to-day affairs, and that was a thing I would love to share if this sort of thing goes along. There is so much that Roger was not able to do his planning work. He was trying to make us aware that maybe we are losing our track and keep on doing that work to remind us. So some of us got the good fortune that we got to be part of the planning. Since Roger had to attend to those things, he gave us some tasks, and gradually we became in a position that we can give proposals.
Thank you, Anupama. Okay, before I begin with the question, I had prepared for the discussion some questions which I would put on to you. For those who do not know both of us, he's prop number 1, his name is Arun, and I'm prop number 2, Lakshay. So Arun is a member of working committee right now, and I was part of ATDC for about a year. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put forth a question, and you got to look at me and answer as if I know nothing about Auroville. That would be better for the audience here. So that I'm going to ask you basic questions for which you don't have to, like you said, be open. You don't have to filter yourself on any aspect. And this topic today is the vision takes shape. Vision takes shape. So what I'm going to probe today is that when did this all start? How have we fared in the last 54 years with this vision, taking shape of this vision, and how have we contributed towards it? And what is it in future for us? What does it mean to hold on to that vision forever? How do we keep evolving and rediscovering the vision that is given to us by Mother? So the first section is, so I have 3-4 questions per past, present, and future. It would be nice if it can be brief so that we can cover more questions, and if possible, we can also take some questions from the audience. I would like if Arun can play the role of a timekeeper so that we can cover, as I said, many questions. So 3 sections, 15 minutes each, and 15 minutes we open up for the Q&A. That way we can wrap in, say, 1 hour. That's the grand target. Yeah? You want to add something?
So first of all, one thing to make clear, I'm not an architect, but I'm only a working committee member and a youth representative. So, and I was invited as a youth representative, so I'm very happy for that. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. The one thing that I really found out was the name Anupama. The name itself means incomparable uniqueness, and this is what her architecture actually is. So she has to thank her astrologer who named her as Anupama, because her name already has a value, and that's what she's really doing now. And I'm very happy to really sit here and...
Nice. Okay, to begin with, we all know tomorrow is 15th August, and 75th occasion of India's independence, and 150th occasion of Sri Aurobindo's birth anniversary. So, a few days back, we were having a conversation. I would like to bring that upon. You mentioned about your connection, your family's connection with freedom struggle. A brief history into what were the history and how did you have connection with Sri Aurobindo?
My grandfather, on the 25th anniversary of India's independence, received a Tamra Patra for his contribution to the freedom struggle. As a consequence of our political history, I'm a uprooted Bengali. So I think that summarizes a lot of us who have that kind of roots. We all know Sri Aurobindo, obviously, and in my case, my grandfather actually worked directly. He has been in jail, he has lost some fingers, he used to tell us the details of how it was when those who were hanged, what that guillotine looks like. He used to read our history books and tell us it's not like that. This is how history is sometimes, I grew up with one grandfather who was that grandfather. I'm remembering them today. And the other grandfather lost all their roots in Dhaka because they chose to go to the other side. So we are a several generational uprooted family, but we are very rooted because when you didn't have a comfortable life, you always lived out of the comfort zone. So it was a blessing. But I never forget that the things we take for granted, because we know what it is when you lose everything. Then you have the chance to give yourself to the service of big plans.
Okay, so coming back to Auroville and the galaxy plan, what do you think was the initial shape of the vision? Auroville, a city or a place for human unity? I'm insisting on these two words, city and merely a place.
I think it's very important to realize that unlike any other idealistic project, Auroville is not utopia. So yes, it had always been thought of as a place. If you look at every dream, charter, whatever we have, there should be somewhere a place. Auroville will be a site. You see, nowhere is utopia floated. So I see a lot of books where Auroville is expressed as those type of communities that you have many, many of in the world, which, they call it intentional community. We have not this word of community. We have that sangha, the purpose of, so community is important, place is important, and city is important. And I will try to explain in a very crisp way why I'm bringing up again and again the idea of not being utopia. Because utopia allows us the liberty to create a double standard. One that is so high that is utopian, whatever we do is not good enough. So meanwhile, you do the banal life. And from time to time, you go in the utopia and you think you're very high.
Exceptional.
Our whole yoga was, the spiritual and material was always put together. And as we are grounded, as our spirit is grounded in our body, so is our collective being grounded in a collective society. And the smallest unit of a society, of a collective being, is the city, polis, civic sense. What is our common identity, What collective do we belong to? So in the fifth dream, which Sri Aurobindo explains about the society, which I have started in the timeline there, you will see the timeline here. Please read that. He talks about a place where the need is to perfect the individual while perfecting the society. You cannot do only one. It is simultaneous. And therefore, the mother, when she gave her brief to Roger, which I only know through Roger, my contact to the mother is through Roger. And my contact to Sri Aurobindo is through my grandparents. So for me, from Roger, I understood why a city and not a mere place.
Well explained. Thank you. So the second aspect of this is, how did she intend the city to be built? Was it to be built by only Aurovillians? Do they have to first become an Aurovillian to be part of the city building? Or was there any timeline to this? Or was this like a ever building? I mean, was this a construction site forever? What do you think? What was her intention about the material aspects of the city? How did she want it to be manifested?
There was always a sense of urgency. It was not a thing like, yes, evolution will always happen, and things will, if you delayed because you didn't get your act together, it doesn't mean now you close the project because you didn't finish it in 10 years. So, of course, try again, try again, try again. But that is never the intention. See, when a thing takes long, and if you look at each of us and why we procrastinate whenever we do, it is the now. Did you do the today's moment towards that goal? It's always the little things you do in the now that will lead you to one destiny or another destiny. The delay which happens because you were working and you didn't manage because you were not able to do more is one delay. And the delay because you resisted or you doubted, you spread doubt in yourself and you don't act. It makes us we have cognitive dissonance and all from living in that reality, the imagined reality and the what is today. But this is a laboratory. We have to always act. About our... Yes, your first question, I forgot it because of the second question. But the first question is, do you have to be an Aurovillian to contribute? I can only know the answer that from the moment where I used to see in the early years when I was here, this was in the very early 90s. And Roger used to be often, actually, I have to put it frankly, accused, okay? In public meetings and all. Why is he trying to say something? Why is he interfering? Or I heard pretty harsh questions, so I can only try to recall his own answer to that. So at one of the first meetings where he was asked, why are you telling us what to do? You don't even live here. I'll repeat exactly that thing that he was asked. Why you have they used to bring quotations from other situations, and they had asked him, you don't live here, so here is a quote that if you don't live here, you should not have anything to do with the day-to-day affairs, or somehow the quote said. I remember what Roger answered. What I remember, because I wrote it down, Roger said, the mother did not ask me to be an Aurovillian. She asked me to be her architect, and I agreed. And then they also did competitions, inviting other architects. He has written a lot of things about the whole world will contribute to building Auroville. That Auroville belongs to nobody in particular, and not even the Aurovillian, obviously not. And Roger also said in that occasion that you chose to be an Aurovillian. I am the mother's architect, and I will continue doing my work. And I think that everyone should do their role. And he also said, we should never close the doors to anybody. It will be built by the world.
I guess this building stands as a testimony to that.
Yes.
If I'm not wrong, this was built by Chakrapani, who won this award, which was floated around, no? So that brings me to the third aspect of this past. What are the key elements, according to you, that defines this vision of the city? Key elements that says, the vision that you talk about defines the shape. What are the elements?
One most defining element is that it is a car-free city where the individualized and polluting transport must not disrupt the social life. Because we are a social experiment, we are not building Auroville like all other cities have the aim just to house its residents. We are not that city. Our aim is to have, we have an international zone, we have things other cities don't have. So the way our form is different from other cities is that the mobility is a central defining element. Why? Because ever since the cars have been introduced to cities, individualism has been introduced in the public space. And if we allow individualism to continue, the social experiment of Auroville cannot even begin. So it's very, very important that to remember that for the mobility to be pedestrian-centric, like a lot of old cities from Jaisalmer to Venice to all over the world, Lamu in Africa, all the cities used to have a certain dimension where the human scale and human intimacy could be retained. Chance encounters, bumping into people, that's what will make you actually get along with each other. If you live far apart in your cars, turn your back and in your own room, you will find more and more difficult to come out of your comfort zone. So the defining element as a consequence is this mobility. It is the density, the compactness. If you don't sprawl, you will have to remain near each other so you can walk around everywhere and have an infrastructure that will be not elitist. Right. And finally, the other point as a defining element is that the land not belonging to anyone in particular, it does not have bylaws that are related to plotting and ownership. We can make bridges, continuities between, we have incredible opportunities. So these are some of the central defining elements. And yes, the not having the economic power to own and create a segregated society that we have everywhere else in the world is not permitted here.
Just an addendum to this. There is a bit of critique in our community to this zoning of Auroville. They say in the postmodern, post-industrial age, where we work from home and so on and so forth, what is the purpose of zoning? What is your view on that?
It is it's not only my view and opinion, it's a factual matter that zoning became problematic after the Industrial Revolution. So before the Industrial Revolution, all the cities had a mixed use. You will see all Indian cities, they would have their workshop below, the residence above. All the cities in the world, people didn't have a taboo about working and producing because we were not producing in a polluting way. We used to not wear helmets to work in a building site. We didn't need gloves because we worked with healthy material. So all this industrial revolution that created, because of the car, huge distances. Earlier you would walk, in 20 minutes you reach anywhere, walking. And then we were used to 20 minutes, so we want to go by a fast car 20 minutes. So we started sprawling and we started producing things in a polluting way. And that's where, if you look at the history of planning, zoning came up because we wanted to zone out the industries from the residential area so that the chimneys will go elsewhere. This is not such a city. We have a high degree of mixed use. The zoning, that theories which came, were really applicable to very different context. Our city is so small, and inside of the city center, after the crown, that's why it's spiral. If you stir your coffee, you mix up all the zones. You see the lines go like that. Yeah. It's all mixed use.
Perhaps we mix too much. So that brings me to the present of Auroville. Why is it that even after 50 years, the vision has not yet taken shape in a substantial manner?
See, I just because he's asking, I'm answering. Doesn't mean I know all answer to any random thing. Okay, Lakshay, take it with a pinch of salt. I think, but I'm telling you why I think the vision didn't take shape. First of all, I think it's taking shape. I only see that it's taking shape. Every day lands are bought. You just go by, take a flight. I took a flight to Bangalore only to see from above how it's taking shape. So first of all, it is taking shape. And it's being delayed is what I would say. And if it is being delayed, it is because of external and internal resistances. Remembering my grandfather, I would just say that he told me when I had discussed with him how much resistance I faced on a personal level, he said, don't worry. Even Vivekananda has given a quote like that if you face resistance, it means that you're doing something relevant. If you didn't face any resistance, nobody worries because you're not doing anything relevant. So just assume that you're doing something relevant. So it is nothing to take personally. The old world always resists the new world. Because even that Prakriti and Purusha, the nature, even if we want to not, if we resist evolution, it will not care about us. We will anyway evolve. But we will evolve in a certain speed. It will take long time. But if we put our will in alignment, we will evolve faster. So yeah, those who want to do it will do that anyway. Then it will take long or less time, more pain, less pain, according to how much we resist. So the short answer is delay because resistance from inside and outside. And inside each of us, we also have resistance. So it's only that. And goodwill. Goodwill. Roger told me that I'm remembering something from him because I used to ask him these questions and I just remembered what Roger told me. I said, what do we need? Do we need engineers? What are we missing? Do we need more knowledge? And he said, no, what we really need, because all that is, we can easily get. Because what we don't know, somebody knows it in the world already. But the real reason is that we have to have the goodwill to allow. If you are not contributing, at least allow the experiment to happen, to not stand in its way.
My next question is also such, where I believe your answers are valid because you have been here 30 plus years and also you got a lot of information, knowledge from Roger's experience also. So in that sense, I kind of feel that your responses are pertinent. How do we, now you said there are a lot of internal and external resistances. What are the causes for the resistances? What do you think? Is it a communication gap? If it is, how do we ensure, everyone has come to Auroville for the idea and ideals of Auroville. When they first step in visitor center, they already see the Matri Mandir, the plan and so on and so forth. So where is the resistance coming from and how do we ensure the residents understand the vision that we all are eagerly waiting to take shape? And as you said also, it has started to take shape. And how do you think they can play a more active role in it?
I don't know this answer.
Yeah. So, and what are the ongoing measure? You are part of now ATDC. You are urban design consultant there. So, what are the ongoing measure to ensure the vision takes shape?
I don't think any measures can be taken. Roger was himself in the governing board. He worked when the mother was there. There is no time the resistance was not there. That's why I didn't know what to answer. So, in any work, I feel those who, I can only say from my experience, I think we have to just develop attitude or a inner alignment somehow that if we have chosen to do this work, that we don't get discouraged, that we don't get intimidated, that we don't feel offended if someone didn't take us in some phase of it. I think all are these are very simple things which sometimes comes in the way of the work. So I think we can just, if we want to do a work, and we have agreed to do that work, we should not fear our peers and what they will say. I think I see a lot of that in Auroville. And I think, see, I faced a lot of that sort of thing. And there were many, many periods where people were not only, some people were not even not talking to me, or there would be, you would go to cafes and you don't know why, or some people come and actually shout at you when you're having coffee with a friend, and you don't know what to say, or you're with your children, like they're my children. I've literally don't know how to behave, because I was raised in a manner that certain manners and basics, you don't know what to do if it comes at you like that. But today when I look back and I face more of that, it seems so irrelevant that I am so glad that because Roger was there and because I never doubted that this work had to be done, I just didn't think only, I kept doing. And now I think like for example, when I was called to come now, from the time Roger passed away to then when I was called, I did not do anything, I didn't stop. Nobody asked me to do anything, but it became an automatic habit to keep on working on it. So I would just keep working on it. And I think today I'm glad I did it, because I think of the essay, The Hour of God, because if suddenly they ask you to give your input, are you ready? So I think your whole life, it's okay to spend your whole life trying to be ready to be ready. Yeah. If things are aligned, you have something to contribute.
You can ask.
So I have a few set of questions. Hope I'll be able to corner you maybe. Louder. Yeah? Can you hear me? Me and mic. Okay. The first question is, how futuristic is the design of Auroville? To which city in the world can we compare its creativity with?
It is, I think, impossible to compare, really, because of those three things I mentioned earlier. There is no city that I know of. I mean, in the, in Aboriginal tribes, and see, we have in old society here in Tamil Nadu, collective or land belonging to the commons, the Porumbok idea comes from there. So, but this idea of going beyond ownership, of going for a society like that is not there. And already in this timeline, you will see, I've talked about Auroville projects with people like Jan Gale, who are people who changed the face of Copenhagen by making it a bicycle city. He's done inputs from New York to Moscow and everything. He's happy to come here also, we call him. They have not seen something like this happening on a city level. And something in more than 50 years ago, we started with those values. So I have not, in all my research on cities, I used to teach city profile in Berlin. I have never come across things of this dimension of experiment. There are some communities who are trying some little things on community level, intentional communities. They are not cities. But nobody is like that where, to create a city, a new city in India, in Tamil Nadu with the governance, in every city you try to create a new town, you will have to vote. You have to be part of the larger political system. So for India, India has created space for such an experiment with the visas involved and everything on a very, very official city level. I have never seen anything like this. And all the concepts which we are doing, and we have heard other people building today, like, these step terrace, high-rise houses, or organic farming, and all those ideas, our green belt, all of these car-free mobility, others are doing, so we feel we are lacking behind. But we were wanting to do it since 1965. If we have not done it, it's not that the ideas are outdated. We have postponed doing it, and still it is needed to be done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question is, how can Auroville youth contribute for the development of the city, even if we don't have the skills related to architecture? Even if we don't have the skills related to architecture. even if you're not architect students.
I think I would like, please, can I ask Raman to answer this question? Because please Raman, you learnt with Roger, you answer Arun's question, how we can contribute. If you don't have already an architectural education, you want to answer? Everybody was contributing.
Example, yeah, very good.
So the question is, how can Auroville youth contribute for the development of the city, even if we don't have the skills related to architecture?
Yeah. See, I think, can I repeat what Mother have answered? She said, we don't need engineers and architects. We need people for simply to work. Once you are willing of that nature, I think everyone will understand and contribute. Not only the youth, but people living here. It's about goodwill. Once there is a goodwill, there is a great opening for everyone to know and understand. Once you understand, the action follows from your understanding. Is that good enough for you, or you want? Okay, thank you.
With due respects to all architects, I take this onus to say that as architects, we are just good pencils in your hands. So we know how to draw, draft, imagine a little better than people who are not skilled at architecture, so-called, or trained in architecture. And architecture is not about ideas. Anybody can have ideas. So youth and a city or a place, like what would you call a good theater? Where theater happens, or where there is all acoustics and lighting and sound and everything, but actually nothing really happens. So the youth has to participate by doing the theater, by filling up spaces, by climbing trees, by actually engaging with whatever goes around to build a city. It's an exchange. So the youth, if it is waiting for the city to be built to come to become youth, that's not youth at all. Right? So it's not a city waiting to be built. It's a city waiting to be lived in. So please start living into Auroville. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. I would like to also just add, that's why the school was called Last School. Because Roger also reminded us, when they did the program, that every unit, like every architecture office and all, we had to keep about 25% of the desks or of any activity for the youth. Because the youth have to learn in life, not confined. It's the opportunity to do which will make you learn. Not just a bookish thing for exam, right? So that, and I would love to have Tuan to say, please, something about this.
About Roger, about whether he was living in Auroville or not. Actually, in his house in Pondicherry, before he came to Auroville, he lived in Pondicherry. And in Pondicherry, he had an apartment, and I think 50% of the apartment were drawing tables with Auroville drawings. He was always busy with Auroville, even then. Same thing, I have visited him in his house in Paris, in France, in Le Crestay, and there he had even built a complete separate studio. So whether he was in Auroville or elsewhere in the world, he would always be preoccupied with Auroville work more than many of us. So that is about that question. I also would like to say something about the zones. There was once a couple, an architect couple who came to Auroville many years ago, and they were trying to argue with me that zones are out of fashion. There is no more zones now. So I said, when the mother had the vision of the town, and when she worked with Roger on the Galaxy, I don't think she checked in the papers to find out what the latest fashion was. It was part of a much larger vision. And I think in the context of Auroville, in addition to what you have said, why there are zones even today in Auroville is because in the industrial zone, you offer economy and industry to a higher consciousness. In the residential zone, you do the same thing for living as residences. So each zone has a predominant theme, but still is of mixed use. So it is a complete different context. The zoning in Auroville has nothing to do with the zoning of, traditional urban planning. And then I also want to answer the question that Anupama refused to answer. Where does the resistance come from? My simple answer is, all of us are born resistors. We are born as resistors because the yoga of Sri Aurobindo is nothing but hastening the transition to a new consciousness. So obviously, when we are born in the old consciousness, we resist, all of us, we resist that transition. So there is nobody to be blamed except ourselves. We have to open up more for manifesting the vision of Auroville and not point fingers to anyone else. We have to find out within ourselves what is in me still resisting. And if we overcome that, we definitely get a critical mass of people who have overcome the resistance or a good part of it and who are working hard in manifesting the vision. And then in a lighter vein, just now I heard the word last school, correct? So I want to declare this exhibition as the last exhibition. And I'm saying this in a positive sense, that we want now the real city. We want to visit the city not in an exhibition, but actually in a three-dimensional reality. So let this exhibition be an inspiration for a three-dimensional exhibition between quotation marks, namely the real city in which we can walk and work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Tuan. You have some more questions, no?
Thank you. So the next question is, having great experience of architecture, would you take Auroville youth for internship?
I gave the example of Raman, but, in our office, we've always had, when I started working here in the very same space, I used to give drafting classes. If you remember, Guna, my group, Anbu, Vinayakam, Devakumar. Devakumar became an architect, everybody took their direction. So, yes, we were given time and attention, and we were nurtured by people above us, older than us, like Roger. And it is the real culture of Auroville, is that to make that space. And I see myself as a bridge between the previous generation and the next one, We actually are, if you look and zoom out a little bit see our role, we are a bridge. And I often ask myself, what kind of ancestor you want to be, We are thinking, we are so preoccupied with now, but if you just think a little ahead, you will know that little bit I act this way or that way, the whole thing will have we will have a different destiny, all of us. So I think definitely I can say there is very beautiful, the whole of Auroville is a laboratory, no? So it's not like there is a school only designated. And learning has to happen everywhere. So internships, it's not even in a boundary, like up to when is your internship, how many months. All of those words come from those type of old school structures, which have no meaning for us. You learn till you are ready. And if you want to learn something else, you find the opportunity to develop your highest potential. At the same time, be of service to the collective.
What are the three things you would like to see in Auroville?
Unity. Unity, and I would like to see that cradle mood, when we have babies and we have a certain mood, we think how our expression looks when we go to see a baby, There is a loving, you always are fascinated with the baby, it brings joy. I would love to cross the road and see that face on every person, which is actually there somewhere inside. I would like to see that loving, encouraging, that how that future world is supposed to look. If the cradle environment has to be given for the new beings to come, how should the environment be? What is that environment, when you are in friendship, where you don't doubt, I pass by, what is that one thinking about me? We should not have any thought only like this. That's what I want to see in Auroville. I would just like to just say for those who are here from Auroville that today we are launching and kickstarting a pan-India design studio that I am offering to mentor along with many others who will help me in that. About 150 students with staff from all over India are producing up until December in 1:100 scale projects for Auroville, which they will bring and insert in this room. We will record it. We are doing this, and I am doing this as an offering to celebrate Roger Anger's birth centenary, which is in March 2023. And for me, this exhibition is dedicated to him and to all of us benefit from what he had to offer us, that we know about it, and all the lessons of urbanism that I benefited from. I would like to share it with whoever wants to listen. So I just want to say a lot of people are here who are going to be part of that.
Wonderful. I mean, just to pick on the thing that you said, this very renowned town planner or urban designer, Jan Gale, architect. So you said if invited, he would like to come. And perhaps not just him, there are many others who would love to come if invited. So is that something which you plan to do, being part of ATDC?
I am in the technical team, but I'm sure the larger ATDC, would you like to say something, Sindhu, about this? I mean, it's a matter of organizing. Okay.
Okay.
The answer is yes. No, the answer is yes.
Answer is yes. Answer is yes. Question.
Thank you. You mentioned the word lab, and in the charter, Mother does mention Auroville is a laboratory for research, and she focused and emphasized the word experiment. She emphasized the word on the experiment. So if we are to experiment and create new forms, how do you balance in becoming oneself as an individual, as collective body, and as a city? So where do you draw the line between creativity, the potential to create constantly, move forward with new forms and not settle down in a static situation?
I do think that architecture itself has a role, because when we are in a certain space or a different space, you feel uplifted or not uplifted. And that's why I think that the Mother, and when Sri Aurobindo was there, they had invited the best architects to build Golconda, because they felt that, because the Mother had said new forms are needed for the new consciousness. And that's why Roger explained to me once that instead of having just planners, she had a chief architect, because of that synthesis to create that. And also a high level of beauty was aimed at. And Roger had explained to us that beauty has the capacity to raise the consciousness spontaneously. When you're in a very beautiful space, Gaston Bachelard also says that, you are reduced to silence. So when there is an inner silence, then only we can go beyond the knee-jerk reaction of living in a manner that we are constantly triggered by something and unconsciously we respond to that thing. So I think there are elements that are very, very crucial that has to be positioned there to create that kind of space. And all the rest is then flexible to evolve.
I kind of have a relative doubt. Do you think that if in a rural context, if low-cost housing are created, they might one day turn into ghettos?
See, low-cost housing, or the larger context, I think, of your question is that we are used to seeing social segregation due to affordability manifesting in every city as a disease of two cities in which people live. Some in the informal and some. And through that, we try to solve it by making a technology miraculously cost low. You know, things, there is a bit you can do, but there are things you cannot cost lower than that. I think the problem has to be solved in a grassroots level. Like some parts of the organism, it doesn't get blood supply. That's why those areas are like that. The whole thing has to be seen as an organism, and all the people, wherever they are born, they have to be nourished. And right now, our political, socio-economic systems are not sometimes able to handle it on that level. There will be limits up to which technology, and if you do the math, how much can that solve? But ghetto is never a good idea. Not only segregation due to affordability, segregation due to any other social condition is also not healthy.
So, excuse my ignorance, this is my first real visit to Auroville because I've heard about it and from you mostly. I came here as a student when I had a very little consciousness to understand. But my question is that you are, with this line of goodwill that we are going to be working for, our students are going to be working for, this is a big plan for 8,000 people. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm wondering where these 8,000 people are going to be coming from, like to just take off from what Neil said, that we want people to come and live, right? This is not about typical cities that make investments. This is about living here. So how are we going to, these 8,000 people, where are they going to come from? And how do we look at their economic sustainability?
So, you know, already on the inauguration of Auroville, the foundation ceremony, 5,000 people came. Because the invitation was announced, and actually there are people who want to come. They have been coming. We have not been able to house them because we don't have, we cannot build Auroville only by finding the money for the cost of the house, because to build a city you need a different kind of budget and infrastructure. So, and if what we have, the last 50 years, we have led to a situation where those who came and had access to funds were able to go ahead with their situation, then you start creating a disadvantage for those who didn't have the funds but want to offer their life. So I think the reason why we are taking up Auroville now with there is a big boost to create a budget, and the government is supporting, and also Auroville is funded by several sources, and the government of India, we are under the HRD ministry. So we have understood that has to be created because there are people coming in. It's the other way around. We are not able to receive. We have to have a critical mass to allow the experiment to happen.
So how does Auroville plan to decide on the introduction of new technologies which have not been fully proven out but could have great potential? For example, 5G, 6G, 7G antennas will be great for connectivity, but they could cause havoc on the EMF fields. For example, nuclear power. For example, genetically modified organisms which have potential. For example, proteins which come from insects growing in vertical insect farms. These are all technologies which have been experimenting around the world. Is there any plan to have any kind of an ethical, scientific community that will be able to bridge these two?
So I would just like to give a generic answer to this, that Auroville is therefore not considered to be an isolated laboratory. Okay, Auroville is the site for experimentation, and through the international zone and through the administration zone, Auroville is very well meant to be connected to the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And I mean, the technical part of it, I would like to give Tuan to answer, because he will be able to say, you know, we have undertaken experiments already so far, you know. So maybe Tuan, would you like to say something?
One line in the charter says spiritual and material research, right? So Auroville is a place of spiritual and material research in any case. We have not seen so far in Auroville the real hardcore research, laboratory research. But I would say applied research we do have. So we have applied renewable energy technologies which already existed in Auroville. But for example, there is a unit called Aquadine who have done research and make products in water purification with some special technology. So I would simply say the answer is yes, Auroville is very open to technological development if it makes sense within the overall vision of Auroville. I mean, you don't go for new technology for the sake of going for new technology. It has to make sense. So in the context of Auroville also, we look at sustainability part, whether a technology contributes to sustainability or not. So you would have to have some criteria by which you take a call on whether a particular technology is useful and applicable in Auroville, yes or no. That would be my general reply.
Okay. As the population grows, the dimension will also grow, and what we are able to, deliver will also accordingly grow. In any case, there is also a floating population of a lot of people who come, and connect with the different units of Auroville.